All right, folks, we're finally getting to the point to where the totalitarian elite are admitting that they actually don't like democracy. After crying and screaming for the last 6 years that they must end Trump in order to save democracy, they must remove certain choices from the ballot in order to preserve our democratic system. They now just admit, actually, yeah, democracy, yeah, it sucks. Voting is overrated. In fact, the New York Times just goes full irony, bro, and entitled the editorial, "Elections are bad for democracy." So like they did capital D democracy. So they are going completely with the meme that, democracy just means whatever the Western liberals want you to believe, and elections, that has nothing to do with democracy. I mean, that's what I've been saying for years. That's what everyone in the third world has been saying for years, who's been a victim of an American coup. But now they're coming right out and saying it in reference to our own country, saying, actually, we shouldn't have elections in America. We need the CIA to just appoint whoever our leader is going to be, and then we're going to have sham elections and call it democracy. And so the problem here with elections is that people can vote for whoever they want under normal circumstances. Now, in 2024, I don't think that's going to be the case. Gavin Newsom is now the first major figure who is coming out and saying, hey, Trump, he's a traitor to my democracy, and so we don't have to put him on the ballot. In fact, we should take him off the ballot because he is a traitor under the whatever amendment that says Confederates like Trump, who fought in the Civil War, they're not allowed to hold public office. And so, maybe we still have an election. Maybe we don't jump straight to just abolishing elections entirely, but let's just have an election with only one guy on the ballot. Fair? I mean, I think that's the moderate position at this point. You've got the Republicans who want to hold elections, and then you've got the Democrats who just want the Democrat to automatically win and have no election. I think that the moderate position here, that anyone who is not an extreme right-winger should be able to get on board with, is we have the election, but we make the only choice Joe Biden. Okay? I mean, what, are you gonna be a right-wing extremist and just say, we need to preserve elections in their entirety? I mean, we need comprehensive election reform here. Or else one day we might wake up and we'll have no more democracy. Now, for those of you who might think that this sounds crazy, it's actually not crazy, because this is how it works in every other Western country other than America. In other countries, the government decides who's allowed to be a candidate. And we also have that here, but within our government and our laws just sort of protect the two-party duopoly. Now we're getting to the point to where the two parties don't even want to coexist with each other, because usually it's okay. Our elections our entire electoral system is rigged so that no one outside of the two major parties can win, and so the two major parties can gatekeep. And the problem with Trump is that the Republican Party was unable to gatekeep, and it's clear now that his supporters form the vast majority of the GOP base. The GOP has been co-opted, not institutionally. The institution of the GOP has not been co-opted at all. That's still completely controlled by, frankly, people who Trump has supported, like Ronna McDaniel, also known as Mitt Romney's niece, and people like Lindsey Graham. They are still firmly within control of the institutional Republican Party. But the Republican base is now completely in full revolt against the old duopoly, and so the Republican Party, I think, most elites would be happy to just completely excise as an institution. It's infected with too much populism, and so they would just like to jettison it into the sea and go forward with a system, a single-party system, where we just have the Democratic Party, and who our leaders are will be decided within the Democratic primary. Now, the way that this works in a place like Germany, which is currently looking to ban the single most popular party in that country, the AfD, Germany just has laws that says essentially any party that seems to be right-wing relative to the current government, anyone to the right of the establishment, we can just ban you, and you can be outlawed. And actually, I think also to the left. They banned the left, too, because they banned the Communist Party in the 50s. And they also banned, of course, the Nazi Party. And then they've banned other parties since then. So that's kind of the way that Europeans think about it. They say, oh, well, we're the moderates. We don't let extremists run, because if extremists, if people want to vote for extremists, well, that's bad. People shouldn't have that choice. People's choices should be, do you want to vote for Lindsey Graham or Kamala Harris? Those are your choices. And so anyone to the right of Lindsey Graham or the left of Kamala Harris, they're extremists, and they should be stricken from the ballot. That's the way it works over in Europe. And in Canada, they don't do it that way. They just seize your bank account and throw you in prison. And so that's why I think this is very realistic. These people appeal to the way that Europe works all the time anyway. They think the European democracy works so well because it is even less democratic than the United States. And so now they're starting to butter us up. They're getting people mentally ready. First, they're trying to get the entire elite class in line, which is why this is being published in the New York Times and the Atlantic. Regular people don't read that, so they're not going to read that and be offended. First, they have to convince everyone within their class that, yes, the right thing to do is we just have to, stop focusing on having free and fair elections. We just can't do that and preserve our power. And so they have to convince each other of that. Once the entirety of the elite class and the professional class, which is broader, it's sort of like the inner party and the outer party, if you want to think of it in 1984 terms. If I remember correctly, Winston was a part of the outer party, so he was a party member, but he wasn't one of the highest level people. He wasn't of the elite, but he also wasn't a pro. And so these two articles, published simultaneously in the New York Times and the Atlantic, with the same subject matter, same position, but different writers, different words. This is the inner party trying to set the agenda and the narrative for the outer party, so that the ruling class as a whole can move forward and try to advance this goal of limiting elections. And so we will see that manifest most notably with the disenfranchisement isn't really the right word, the removal of Trump from the ballot, let's just say that, which I and many others have been warning of. And all this, I believe, was it just today or was it yesterday that Gavin Newsom came out and said states should remove Trump from the ballot. I mean, we all knew that they were going to do this as soon as they started doing it to Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, I think was the other one. And they failed with both of them. But, with Trump, if they have a conviction on him on anything, they're going to do it. And as we've seen from the courts, no, you can't use precedent and say, oh, well, Eugene v. Debs. I used to believe that. But obviously the courts don't care about, precedent, and they don't care about, what's correct, what's incorrect. What the courts care about is getting Trump. And anyone who has anything to do with him, anyone who reminds them of Trump, anyone who has the same mindset. I just look at what they did to the January 6ers, and there's very few things, to me, that are more extreme and more dystopian than that. I mean, they threw innocent people who did absolutely nothing wrong in prison for 20 years. Old people, too, so some of them it's for the rest of their life. And they're doing this now in Michigan and other places. Just because they disagreed with the... because they had a grievance that they wanted to express regarding the conduct of the 2020 election. Those people have been locked up now by the courts. And you want to tell me that, oh, that happened, but it's far-fetched to say that the courts would remove Trump from the ballot? They would happily do it. That's so much less extreme than throwing innocent people in prison. Remember, I mean, for years now they've kind of been buttering us up that, you know, elections are not all that when it comes to the government, because it was considered a bad thing that during the Trump administration that the elected leader was going against the wishes of the permanent bureaucracy. For years now, the mainstream liberal left, as well as the the establishment right, basically everyone on the right who wasn't Trump and who didn't get on board with Trump after 2016, all of those people believe that elected leaders, their duty is to defer to the permanent bureaucracy. And so if elections lead to leaders being elected who challenge the bureaucracy, well, then obviously the elite is going to see elections as a problem. And now they are willing to state it openly, directly, whereas before it was kind of indirect. They didn't say elections were the problem. They said it's a problem that Trump is opposing the interagency, as they called it. But if you wanted to look one dimension deeper, you would see that what they're talking about is the elected official challenging the unelected official. So this is where we're headed, and this is where I expect things will end up. This rhetoric is going to intensify over the next few months, and that will be the next big battle. You know, some people thought, oh, 2024, that's going to be about, you know, hey, Trump trying to campaign against Biden. It's going to be a rematch of 2020. No. 2024 is going to be about Trump fighting not only to stay out of prison, not only for his freedom, but to even get on the ballot. That's what 2024 is about. He's not going to have time to campaign. No one's going to have time to campaign. There's going to be no resources for that. There will not be a 2024 presidential campaign. There's going to be a 2024 legal fight, and there's going to be a ballot access fight. It's going to be the trials of the centuries, right? No, it's trials of the century, I guess. Because there's going to be, what, are we up to 5 now? So, anyway, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.